Welcome back, guys! In this lesson, as one of my students suggested, we are going to try and add multiple brushes because he told me that he made a game for his daughter and only having the paint brush, it's not a paint brush, it's actually a spray. So the spray texture here is kind of annoying. So we are going to add more brushes. Okay, so in this lesson, we are basically just going to work on the shader. So let's maximize it. Awesome. First things first, we want to remove this because we are not using it right now. Cool. Right now, to paint the texture, we are using this factor. So this is what gives the spray can texture, okay? Let me just rearrange this really quickly. Thank you. Perfect. So now what we are going to do is unplug this node. Nice, because we are going to be using a sample texture. Boom. Let's duplicate it. Let's remove this and plug the RGBA to the lerp node. So right now we don't have any texture attached, but this is going to be our main brush. So we are going to bring it down a bit more and add a new property for the brush. So let's add a new texture 2D and call it brush texture. Let's grab it, drop it here and link it. There you go. So right now we don't have any brush texture in our project. So what I've done is created 3 textures that you can use. Let's import them actually. Here they are. You can actually find them attached to this lesson. So let's double click. There you go. Let's import everything. You can actually grab them from materials, textures, brushes. So there is this brush, which should represent a paint brush, something like that. This one is a blurred one, but we are actually not going to use it. And this texture should represent a pencil brush. For the spray brush, we are not going to use the equation that we've done right here, but instead, I think that there is a halo or a blur something here. Yeah, nope, not this one. So maybe it's circle. Okay, circle outline. Here we go. Yeah, this one. We are going to use the free flat gradient circle icon. Okay, this is going to be our spray can brush. Perfect. So now that we've got this, we can select our brush texture property here. And by default, let's assign, let's say, the pencil texture. Here we go. So of course, right now, it's definitely not ideal. This is not what we want. So let's multiply this texture by its own alpha. So let's grab this, add a multiply node by the alpha, perfect. And this is what we are going to use to plug in our lerp node. Awesome. So we now know how to paint a certain texture, our pencil texture here, on our actual texture, the snail. That's the first step. Then, as you can see, right now, the size of our texture is way too big. We want to be able to use the brush size that we have right here to manipulate the size of our brush. So for that, we are going to use a tiling and offset node. So tiling and offset, there you go. Let's plug that to the UV node and play a bit with the tiling. So if we increase the tiling, we can notice that the size of our texture diminishes. And of course, these two values need to be the same because our texture have proportional values here. It has the same width and height. Okay, so let's grab our brush size, drop it here, and link it to the tiling. We can't because this is a float. This needs a vector2. So we need to plug it to a vector2 x and y. There you go. And here. Perfect. So right now our brush size is 0.01. What if we increase that? Okay, there you go. So the more we increase the brush size, the smaller our texture gets. We need to keep that in mind because we kind of want the opposite here. But don't worry, because if you remember well, in our brush size manager here, we set up our brush sizes. So we can definitely plug this one as the first one, this one as the second one, and so on. Okay, so I'm just going to hit Control Z here because I don't want to deal with this right now. Okay, so now that we know how to change our brush texture's size, we definitely need to keep it at the center, okay? So keeping it at the center will make it easier to use our UV position later on to paint wherever we want, because we definitely want to play with the offset later on, okay? So that the player can paint the bigger circle or the smaller one and so on. So let's proceed step by step here. If our brush size is 4, what values do we need to put in the offset here so that the brush is centered? If we set it to 0, 0, it's not centered. If we set it to 4, 4, it's not visible. If we set it to 2, 2, it's not visible. 1, 1, it's not visible. So do we need to input negative values? Yes. So first off, negative values. -2, -2, nope. -1.5, maybe. -1.5. Seems like it is centered here. Okay? So this is really important. So it seems like it is kind of divided by 2 minus 0.5. Let's try that. So if it is 10, so, oh, it disappeared here. I don't know why. Let me just do this, tiling. Oh, come on, 4. Oh, there you go. So if our brush size is 10, according to our equation, it should be 5 minus 0.5, but the negative. So minus 4.5 minus 4.5. And yep, seems like it is definitely centered. What we can do to check if that's the exact center is create an ellipse here. Okay, so this one is centered. What we can do is set it to 0.1, 0.1, and maybe multiply these two. Okay, let's diminish its size. Oh, of course we are not going to. So let's add an add node actually. So add, yeah, that's better. Let's remove the multiply node. Let's add this one and this one. Okay, maybe we can increase it to 0.1, 0.1. Yeah, seems like it's definitely centered. That's perfect. Awesome. So we now know how to center our brush. That is super cool. Let's do it actually. So the equation was divided by -2 plus or minus 0.5, right? So let's do it. Let's grab our brush size. Let's divide it by -2. Okay. Let's also plug that into a vector 2, yep, x actually. And actually that's going to be x and y. And add -5. So -0.5 minus, you can also subtract 0.5 actually. Or you can actually add that here and plug that to the vector 2, should give the same result. Okay, let's try this out. Okay, so add 0.5, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, we need to add 0.5, not subtract, sorry. So now if we grab our brush size and increase it, yeah, that's always going to be centered, which is really cool. Nice. So we've tackled the first problem. The second thing here is to take into account our UV position to place the texture wherever we want on our main texture. And for that, we are going to be using the UV position right here. So here it is. But what are the minimum and maximum values of our UV positions here? Because we definitely need them. So for that, what I propose to you is to jump back to Unity, open our GPU sprite brush, and debug our UV position so we can find it right here. That's the texture point divided by the sprite texture.width. Okay, so debug.log, boom, 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 debug.log, there you go. UV position plus this value right here. And what we can do is actually drop it in a variable so that we can easily reuse it. I think that's a vector2, UV position equals this, there you go. Let's use it here and also there. Perfect. Let's now jump back to Unity. Let's hit play. All right, so we are now able to check our UV position. If I click here, UV position .17.47. Okay, so now the bigger one, by the way, is still the bigger one. And of course, we are just coloring because we don't have anything plugged here. That's perfectly normal. Yeah, the texture is actually too big, that's why. By the way, let's focus on our UV position. So if I go to the far right, okay, I'm getting .7.006. So that's this point right here in our texture. So it's kind of closer to the bottom. So it seems like our Y position is clumped between 0 and 1. Okay, I've just clicked on the bigger circle here. And if I click on this ear, or maybe the left side of the circle, it's 0. So it seems like our texture goes from 0, 0 to 1, 1. Awesome. We can now use this information to properly use our UV position in our shader to place the texture. Okay, so here is what we're going to do. First off, we are going to need another add node because we want to add our centered logic for the offset to our next logic that we are going to use to place the texture. So let's drop this here, and this one there, 0, 0. There you go. Okay, so first things first. If we grab our UV position, let's add an add node just so that we can better experiment with it. We know that this goes from 0, 0 to 1, 1. Okay? So if we add this, right now the UV position is .5.5, so let's set it to 0, 0. There you go. At 0, 0, we should be at the bottom left. So what can we add? Oh, by the way, we can look at here. I was looking there. Come on! So let's diminish this. No, we will need to increase it. There you go. And increase it again. Okay, so this seems like the center. What about 1.5, 1.5? Seems like the center of our texture, huh? What about the top right now? So 1, 1. Okay, so 1.5 is not working anymore. What about -1, -1? Oh, now it's centered. Okay. And we need to diminish that a bit more. -2. Okay, seems like it's going to be -2.5, -2.5. Okay, next question. Does the brush size have an impact on the offset that we need to apply? If we increase the brush size, it definitely has an impact. Okay, so if we set that to 5, okay, that's really bad. It has shifted to the left, to the bottom left actually. So we need to take the brush size into account in our offset. So here is what we are going to do. We know that our UV position is clumped between 0 and 1. We have the brush size. So we are going to remap our UV position between minus the brush size divided by 2 and the brush size divided by 2. Okay? This should do the trick. So let's grab our brush size and divide it by 2. Perfect. Let's also multiply it by -1 right here, because we want to create a vector 2 out of this for our remap output. So let's create a vector 2. This should be our x, and this is our y. Okay, so this is our remap vector. Perfect. Let's now add a remap node. Cool. We've got our UV position. Let's drop it in the in of the remap node, even though I don't know if it's going to work with vector 2s. When making the course, I've actually used simple values, floating values, actually. So 2 remap nodes, but let's give it a shot. We know that the UV position is clumped between 0 and 1, so let's use this one as the output and use it in our add node here. Okay, same result right now. What happens if we change the value of our UV position? Okay, awesome, we're getting somewhere. So 0 seems to be right here and 1 right here. If we increase our brush size, does it have any impact? Yep, it does. All right. What about the Y position? Okay, seems like it's also working. That's really cool. But what I'm going to do is actually select the brush size and set it back to 5. We actually need to be at the top right at this state. So you know what? We are actually going to use 2 remap nodes because, yeah, seems like it's not working as expected here. So let's grab this, duplicate the UV position. Let's use a split node because we only want the X value. This is the one that we're going to remap. Let's drop the add node a little bit further. Perfect. Instead, we are going to recreate a vector 2 just after remapping our values. So this is going to be the X, and this is what we're going to add to our offset here. We don't need this add anymore, by the way. Let's add it right here, right away. Okay, so it seems like it's already way better for our X value. We are at 1. If you set it to 0, it's also centered. Awesome. So we just need to apply the same logic for our Y position, and we are done. Okay, let's jump right in. Oh, I feel remotivated here. Okay, so let's duplicate these. Grab it and drop it. Oh, come on, I can't select everything. There you go. Let's use the Y value now in our remap node. So let's do something like this. There you go. If you don't like the presentation here, what you can do is duplicate this boy and drop it here. Or what we can also do, by the way, let's remove all of the excess, is double click on the link so that it creates a kind of divergence. I don't know, another node that you can use to reroute our link. Yeah, let's call it like that. Let's use this in our vector 2 here, and we're good to go. Perfect. So now if we set this to 0, 0, we are at the bottom left, and 1, 1, top right. Awesome. So let's try and set it at the center. Yep, this is really cool. Oh, dot 5, by the way. Yeah, it was not really centered. Yep. Okay, seems like it's now correct. So let's set it back at the center and call it a day. All right, we are almost there. There are still two things that I want to add here: the hardness of the brush and rotating the brush from time to time so that it gives a better effect. But I will definitely show you that in another lesson, because right now we want to try this out. Come on, let's give it a shot. So let's do that in the next one. See you there. Welcome back, guys. I'm still in the shader because we need to check something here. We are going to assign our brush texture by code. And for that, we are going to need the reference of our texture. For that, let's just make sure that it has the underscore at start, and or maybe just remember how it is written, because this is what we need, not the actual name. This name right here is what is used by Unity to actually display that in the inspector. So we can call it brush texture. Okay, there you go. Oh, by the way, it has changed our reference. So yeah, let's bring it back to brush texture or underscore brush texture. Cool. Just want to make sure that it is done. We are also going to save our shader and get back to Unity. Oh, what a relief. Oh, okay, so let's now use that. The first thing we are going to do, because we have three, not here, but materials, not shaders, materials, textures, brushes, 3 brushes, these ones, okay? With the other one. We are not going to use this one, so let's remove it. You can actually keep it and give it a shot. I'm not going to do that. Okay, there you go. We've got our brushes. Now what we need to do is give it a shot. Actually, we are definitely going to try that. So let's select our full color material. Okay, now we can spot the brush texture. So let's select, what was that? I think it was pencil. Yeah, pencil texture, and hit play. Okay, let's select a blue color. Boom. Okay, everything is blue. What about the big one? Everything is blue. Okay. So now what we are going to do is select our brush size manager, and seems like we need to diminish these values. So I'm going to divide everything by 10. Okay, so 0 here, 0 here, and 0 here. What about this? Okay, still too big. What about the smaller one? Okay, so let's keep dividing that. Okay, 0, here it should be 6, and here it should be 6. All right, let's use, oh, but I think that it was the opposite, right? Yeah, let's use 1, 5, and 10. Let's try another color. Okay, what about the small? There you go. We can now spot the details of our brush. So 10, 30, 50. What about the red color? Okay, the bigger one. Okay, so the bigger one is the smaller one. So it should be something like 40, maybe 25, and 5. I think 5 is still too big. What about the big one? Yeah, 5 is too big. So maybe 15. Let's clear our texture here. Yeah, there you go. So that we can better spot our colors. But it's already looking really cool, actually. I love it. Okay, so let's grab the middle one, the mean one. Okay, green. That's decent. Okay, what about the smallest one? Yeah, that's too small, but that's okay. You get the point. Awesome. So now our texture is working, and we can definitely change that. So let's select our full color material and change the texture to the brush one just to give it a shot. Okay. Come on. It's too big. Come on. There you go. Yeah, we need to actually update the brush size, but you can notice that it is working as expected here. There you go. I love it. Okay. So now that we've got this working, what we need to do is take the hardness into account. We can already imagine that the pencil's hardness will be less than the paintbrush's hardness, okay? So yeah, let's do that really quickly. For that, we need to open the shader again. Oh, come on. When are we going to be done with it? So at this point, we've got our texture. It is wherever we want it to be. We do multiply it by the alpha to get the transparency or opacity taken into account. And right here, we can actually plug the hardness. So let's grab this, add a new property floats. Okay, so underscore hardness. There you go. Let's grab it, drop it here, and plug it to a multiply node because we want to multiply the hardness by this texture right here. So let's actually drop this here and this here. So if the hardness is 0, it doesn't make any sense. It's not going to be visible, but we can manipulate this by changing the value from 0 to 1. So 1 full hardness, 0 invisible. So yeah, there you go. What we can also do is set this to a slider so that it is clumped between 0 and 1. And we will also need to edit this value from our script. Got it? So the final step here is to plug this to the lerp node so that we can actually use it. Okay, so this is for our hardness. I'm just going to rearrange this because it is really ugly. I don't like it. So let's grab these two. Drop this here. Okay, so this is going to be a new group, hardness. In here, what are we doing? We are actually centering our thingy. Yep. So let's right click, centering the brush. Perfect. And finally, right here, we are offsetting the brush, taking the UV position into account. All right, so let's grab everything that's in here, group the selection, and offsetting the brush, let's say. Yeah, or maybe placing the brush, placing the texture. There you go. Cool. This is done for our hardness. The second thing I wanted to add here is the brush rotation. If we have a look, by the way, I've just saved, just so that you know. If we come back to Unity here, we can notice that our brush always has the same orientation. And this, oh, come on, I forgot to follow. Anyway, I think it was 45, 25, 15. Yeah, let's hit play. There you go. That's better. Okay, awesome. So as you can notice here, our brush always has the same orientation, and I honestly don't like it. Okay. Okay, perfect. There is also something else that I want to add later on. I'm going to show you that later on, don't worry. But yeah, let's add some random rotation to our brush. It's going to be fun. So for that, we are going to apply our logic in the tiling and offset. Nope, just after the tiling and offset actually. So let's do this. Let's right click and create a rotate node. There you go. We can now grab our tiling and offset and plug it in the UV input. Yep. So now we can rotate our texture. Whoa. So go on. Anyway, but we want it to be rotated automatically. So a really easy thing we can do is actually add a time node so that it is rotated over time. There you go. It's always going to rotate like that, but it's going to be weird like when we paint. We can actually give that a shot. It can be funny. Let's try this. Okay, wait for it. Okay, so yeah, the bigger one is actually going to be okay. Yeah, that's creepy. No, I don't like it. So instead, we are going to use the time node as the seed of a random value. So the random value can be between 0 and 360, but I think that it is in a radians. So maybe 2 pi, so 2 times 3.1415. Okay, so that's 3. Maybe 6.28. There you go. Let's grab this, drop it here. Okay, so now we've got random rotation. If we go back to Unity, hit play, let's grab the biggest brush, another color, and yep, that's already way better. Cool. And of course, it is definitely objective here. If you don't like this effect, don't use it. I'm just here to show you that you can use it. But yeah, let's grab the hardness and drop it to 1. Okay, that's definitely too big. Yeah, there you go. Now I like it. Really cool. Okay, so that was the rotation step. Next, in the next one, we are actually going to create a new scriptable object to store our data. But what is our data here? The brush texture and the hardness, of course. So it's going to be really simple, but will come in really handy when dealing with our brushes. Okay? So see you in the next one. Cheers. Welcome back, guys. In this lesson, we are going to create the scriptable object I told you about in the previous one. So let's do that. Scripts. Let's right click, create a new folder for our data, even though we are only going to have one scriptable object here. So let's create a new C# script and call it brush data. Flower. Once it's done compiling, let's open it. There you go. Did I use a namespace? No, I did not. So let's not use it. Let's inherit from the scriptable object class. We're also going to have the create asset menu attribute. File name equals brush data, like so. There you go. Menu name will be equals to scriptable objects. Oh, come on, I can't type here. You know, it's really cold in here. My fingers are just frozen. So scriptable objects slash brush data. And the order can be 0 for now. Okay. So inside of here, we will need 2 things. First off, the texture. So the brush texture, of course. And secondly, the hardness. Hardner. Hardness. So serialize field private texture to the texture. We are also going to have a property to grab that texture. So public texture to the texture. That's going to simply return our texture. Perfect. And for the hardness, same thing. So serialize field private float. Hardness, public, float, hardness, hardness. There you go. What we can also do here for the hardness is add the range attribute, because we know that this should be contained between 0 and 1. So 0f and 1f. There you go. And yep, we should be good. So let's jump back to Unity now and create our 2 or 3 brushes. Yep, I think we're going to have 3. So ultimate coloring course, right click, create a new folder called data. Right click again, create a new scriptable object, brush data, and call it, I think we're going to start with the pencil, yeah, or maybe with the paintbrush. So maybe paintbrush data. Let's duplicate it twice. This is going to be our pencil data, or maybe pencil brush, no, pencil data. And finally, spray can data, or maybe just spray data. Yeah, that's going to be better. Okay, so the first one is going to have our paintbrush. So let's write brush in here. Yep, this one. We can also set the hardness to 1 for the paintbrush. Again, this is purely objective here. Make sure to use the value that you find the most relevant. For the pencil, let's grab our pencil thingy brush, and the hardness can be something like a bit less, so maybe 0.4. Come on, 0.4. Thank you. And for the spray data, what we can use is, I think it was circle. Yep, this one. Nice. And the hardness can be something like, I don't know, maybe 0.7. You decide. Again, cool. So we've got our 3 brushes. So now we are going to create a new script that's going to handle this data. And this boy is going to be called something like brush manager. Yep. In here we have the brush size manager. And by the way, keep in mind that you can definitely add your script to this same game object here. I just like having different game objects for different scripts, but it's just a preference here. So let's create our script, right click, create. Why do I have a pencil manager already? Pencil container, oh, for the pencils, that's cool. So right click, create a new C# script and call it brush manager. Let's grab it, attach it to our brush manager game object, nice, and open it. Cool. So in here, we will need a reference to our brush data. So serialize field, private brush data array. Let's call it brushes. And I like to have a header here. So let's call it data instead of elements, sorry. And it's actually going to be a really simple script here. We just want a method that will help us select a brush. And that method will be linked to some buttons on the right-hand side. So maybe just at this position, and we can move these to the left just a tiny bit, okay? So let's jump back to Visual Studio, public void select brush int index. So in here, we are going to let our GPU sprite brush, so this boy, that we've selected another brush, because this is the one that has a reference to the brush material and is also responsible for setting the textures, colors, floats, and vectors, okay? So yeah, what you could have done if you want messy code is add a reference to the brush material in the brush manager, and our select brush could be something like brush material dot set texture brushes index blah blah blah. Okay, you got the point. So in our case, what we want to do is call the GPU sprite brush dot instance dot set brush, and the brush that we want to set is our brushes at index index. Of course, we need to make sure that the index is correct right here. If you want to avoid errors, this is not compulsory, but it's a good practice. So if index is less than 0, you can simply return, or you can do something like debug.log invalid brush index. Okay. So if this or the index is greater than brushes.length -1. It can be brushes.length -1, but it should not be greater. Okay. We can also check if the brushes, so if brushes at index equals null, if we forgot to add the brush, then debug.log no brush at that index, my boy, like so, and return. If we can pass all of these security doors, we can set the brush. Cool. So let's now jump to our GPU sprite brush and create a new method for that. Maybe right here, private or maybe public, actually, void set brush, brush data, brush data, brush data. Okay, come on. Like so. Nice. Inside of here, really simple. Brush material dot set texture. We need the name of our texture, so the int name ID, this is an integer, or the string name. In our case, we know that the brush texture is called underscore brush texture. So that's the reference I told you about previously, right here. Well, wait for it to compile actually. Thank you. So let's select our brush texture, underscore brush texture. You can actually hit Control C, come back here, Control V. There you go. And the value will be brush data.texture. Cool. Same thing for the hardness. So hardness underscore hardness, and finally set float instead of set texture. Cool. Let me just double check that with the hardness is actually underscore hardness. Okay, please select the hardness. Yeah, underscore hardness. Nice. Okay, I think that we're now done. We just need the buttons to be able to change our texture. So let's switch that to full HD. There you go. I'm going to select the buttons, size button container, maybe to the left. Yeah, move them somewhere around here. Duplicate this. Let's set that to -125. Nope, 100. Yeah, -100. Seems correct. So this is going to be brush buttons container. Yeah. Okay, so in here, I'm simply going to change that to square, maybe 50, just so that it is a bit more rounded. The pixels per unit can be something like 2. I think it's going to be a bit more for the smallest one, but they should have the same size actually. 125 by 125. There you go. I can turn them or keep them dark-ish or change their color. Yeah, this one seems correct. Then I'm going to rename them. this is going to be our brush, or maybe paint brush, maybe just paint brush, pencil, brush, button, and finally spray brush or spray can or spray button. You get the point. Okay, so now let's add an image to our 3 buttons. Right-click UI image. This one is gonna be the paint brush. So paint brush, there you go. The second one is gonna be a pencil brush, even though it doesn't make any sense. And the third one is a spray can. Cool. You can find these images, by the way, in the starter pack. These are just simple images that I've grabbed from Google. I think it was from freepik.com, something like that. Attribution is required. This is what I've done. freepik.com. Boom. Okay, so let's just enhance our UI a tiny bit, maybe 10 pixels for the offsets. And by the way, there is a full course on how to deal with Unity's UI Kawaii Survivor. It's awesome. Okay, so we've got our 3 buttons. Now we want to select them like so and add a callback. So there is already a callback. It's not the right one. We want to select the brush manager and select the select brush method. So this one is 2, 1, and 0. We are going to swap them, but not the images, the indices here. So this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. Perfect. Just to make sure, we are going to add the same order here. So let's add our first one. It should be the paintbrush, then the pencil, then the spray. Cool. What we could also have done is add an icon in our data here, and the brush manager could have been responsible for instantiating the buttons right here on the brush buttons container. It will take a bit more time, but it's definitely cleaner. The goal here is just for me to show you how you can do it, okay? Then I'm sure that you can do it by yourself because we've already done that for the pencils. Okay, I think that at this point we can try it out. Can we? Let's give it a shot. Okay, so let's select the blue color. Okay, this one is working. Maybe a middle one. Nice. What about the pencil? There you go. And what about the paintbrush? Maybe in red? Awesome. That's so cool. Perfect. Dude, that's really cool. I love it. Okay, I think it's going to be it for this lesson. In the next one, what we're going to do is add an undo button because, yeah, again, that student really told me, yeah, I want an undo button, blah, 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 blah. But honestly, he's right. There is no undo button right now, and it feels a bit off. So let's learn how we can do that in the next one. See you there. Welcome back, guys. In this lesson, we are going to be adding our undo button. Let's jump right in. Oh, so let's start with the UI. In our UI, I want to create a new UI button. This is going to be the undo button. So 150 by 150, something like that. Maybe we can change the sprite really quickly. I'm just going to enhance the visuals really quickly because I don't want to spend so much time in here. Let's drop this maybe somewhere around here. We might change the color so that it is more visible. Okay, there you go. Maybe 2 for the pixels per unit multiplier. Okay, somewhere around here. Is it going to bother us with the pencils or not first? Let's just make sure that it's not the case. Okay, so if we move them up, yeah, that's perfect. So we can actually move it somewhere around here, actually. That makes more sense. So 95 minus 95. Cool. For the text, I'm not going to use a text. I'm just going to use an image here and maybe an arrow if there is a back arrow, something like that. This one makes sense. Yeah. Cool. So let's preserve the aspect of the image and call this undo button. Perfect. So this is everything we need for our UI. Now let me explain how we are going to proceed. You know that our image here, so the snail, is separated into multiple sprites. So if we have a look at the object right here, we've got the outer circle, the middle circle, and so on. So each of these sprites, whenever we paint something, gets its texture changed. So for the outer circle, we can now notice that the texture is a new one. Okay, if we double click, here it is. Same thing if we try and paint again. Okay, there you go. We can notice the changes. So ideally, here is what we're going to do. When the player clicks on a sprite, we want to save the texture before applying any changes. That texture will be saved in an object along with the sprite index. That way we can track which sprite has been changed and what was the previous state of that sprite, so the previous texture assigned to it. We're going to have a list of that. You can actually use a queue or a stack. It's actually the same principle. I'm just going to use a list for simplicity's sake. And then when we press the undo button, we just want to apply the last texture that was active to the last sprite that we've changed. As simple as it gets. So let's try and do that. Okay. What we're going to do is open the GPU sprite brush. Yeah, this is where I want to put this logic. And the first thing we are going to do here is create the undo object I told you about. So it's going to be a system.serializable public class undo object. There you go. Come on. Let's go, please. Here you go. And as I've told you, we need two things. We need the sprite index along with the texture. So public int sprite index and public texture 2D texture. Then let's add a constructor. So public undo object with an int sprite index and texture 2D texture. Okay, let's initialize that. This dot sprite index equals sprite index and this dot texture equals texture. Perfect. So this is everything we need for our undo object. Now let's create a list of these objects right here. So at the top, somewhere around here, we can do something like data or maybe undo. Yeah, I think it makes more sense to call this undo. Serialized field, private list of undo object, and let's call it undo objects. Yeah, actually equals new list of undo objects. There you go. All right. So now we've got our list of undo objects. Whenever we press, so get mouse button down, we call the raycast sprites method. And inside of here, maybe at the bottom actually, so if the original contains key, okay, if it does not contain a key, we create the original texture or we add it to the array. So we basically want to do the same thing if the original textures array or list, dictionary actually in that case, does not contain the key. So yeah, we definitely need to create a reference to the undo texture. So texture 2D undo texture equals new texture with the width and the height, okay? It needs to have the same dimensions as our current sprite, the one we are editing. Okay, so that's the first step. Then in this case, if this is the first time we press this sprite, we want to add the original texture. So graphics.copy texture, we want to copy our original textures at index key in our undo texture, okay? Perfect, so that we can save it. But if this is not the first time we press this boy, we are going to copy the edited texture, okay? Not the original one. So let's grab this one, drop it here. And instead of using the original texture, we want to use the edited textures at key. Once this is done, we've got our texture. So we can add it to the undo object. So undo objects.add a new undo object. So we need the sprite index. And in this case, it is the key. The texture will be the undo texture. Just for reference here, the key, if you have a look at it, is the sibling index of the current sprite renderer that we've pressed. So this is definitely what we want here. We can already give this a shot, so let's jump back to Unity. We're going to select our GPU sprite brush. Here are the undo objects. Of course, after testing this, we can hide them. No need to show them in the inspector. So let's hit play. All right, let's have a shot. Boom. Here's the first element. Okay, and we've got the texture. If we now try and select another color, maybe a bigger size, let's paint the middle circle here. There you go. We can notice that there is no change here because this is the texture of the bigger circle, the outer one. Let's select the GPU sprite brush. We've got now a second element, double click, and we can notice that again, it did not have any change because the first time we've pressed the small circle, it was white. Now, if we press it again, and come back to the GPU sprite brush, we've got a third element with some blue color, the color that was present just before. Awesome! So now that we know how to store these textures, what we can do is add the logic to our undo button. Let's do that right away. Not in the next one, not this time. Okay, so let's jump back to our script. At the bottom of the script, so maybe just before the undo object, after the setBrush method actually, we can do something like public void undo. Okay, so this is where we are going to undo. And this is the method we are going to link to the undo button. First off, we want to undo if we can undo. So if the undo objects list is empty, no need to undo. So if undo objects.count is less or equals to 0, let's return. Okay? Return. We are going to return. So if undo objects.count is less than 0, return. Perfect. Then, if we've got some undo objects, we want to grab that object. So undo object, let's say undo equals undo objects at index undo objects.count -1. So we grab the last undo object. After that, we want to grab the texture of that undo object and paste it onto the edited textures of the sprite index. I hope this makes sense, because if you remember well, the edited textures is what we are using when painting a sprite actually, as you can notice right here. And this is actually the current texture used by the sprite to create a sprite. So basically we're going to paste our undo texture in the edited texture, create the sprite again like we've done right here, and assign it. Okay? So yep, let's do that. We can do graphics, graphics.copy texture. Not copy buffer, copy texture. We want to copy the undo.texture onto the edited textures at index undo.spriteIndex. Hope this is clear again. If it's not, please leave a comment in the comment section. I'm going to try and explain again. Then let's grab our sprite renderer. So sprite renderer, let's call it SR, is going to be equals to the sprite renderer's parent. So do we have that parent somewhere around here? We've got the current sprite renderer, okay, but we don't have that parent. So let's add a reference to it. Serialize field, private, transform, sprite renderers, renderers, parent. Yes, like so. And let's now use that, and let's now use it inside of here. So it's going to be sprite renderers parent dot get child at index undo dot sprite index dot get component of type sprite renderer, and that's it. Yep. So this is our sprite renderer. Now let's grab the sprite. Sprite equals sr.sprite. Nice. The sprite here is going to come in handy because we need the rectangle of that sprite and also the pixels per unit. So we can now create a new one. Sprite, let's call it new sprite. New sprite equals sprite.create. We want to create it from the edited textures at index undo.spriteIndex. Then what do we need? We need the rect, and the rect right here is sprite.rect. With the pivot, vector2.1 divided by 2. And finally, the pixels per unit, sprite.pixels per unit. Awesome. So this is why we've grabbed the sprite from the sprite renderer here. Now that we've got the new sprite, we can definitely assign it to our sprite renderer. So sr.sprite equals new sprite. Really cool. And finally, because we've used the undo object, we now need to remove it from the list, but not right now because copying a texture might take some time. So we're going to wait for 1 or 2 frames and then we can remove it. So let's do something like lean tween. Maybe you can use a tweening library or simply invoke the method. So lean tween.delay call. Let's assign it to this game object. So after time.delta time times 2. We want to call a method, so maybe remove last undo. Yep, something like that. And of course, we can assign the undo so that it is easier to deal with. So let's do something like this. Okay, private void remove last undo object undo. There you go. So undo objects dot remove undo. And for now, this is good. But after that, we are going to change the interactability of the undo button depending on if we have more undos or not, so that it is a bit more professional. So let's now jump back to Unity. Let's select our undo button and link our brush manager, GPU sprite brush undo method right here. Let's select the GPU sprite brush, hit play, and hopefully everything is gonna work correctly. Oh, I'm so thirsty. Okay. So let's select a color. Boom, boom. That's the first one. Let's try another one, maybe something like this. Let's change the color to something like this. Yep, I like it. No, I hate it, but that's okay. I just want to show you that it is working. Is it enough or should I add more? Anyway, let's press once, twice. Okay, we are getting an error here. We haven't added the sprite renderer's parent. I definitely did not notice that. Come on. Maybe I'm too tired or am I too old for that? Oh, I'm too old for that stuff. But yeah, let's try this out now. It should work properly. Okay, nice. Let's add this. So we've done three things here. The red one first, and then the smaller circle, then the snail's body. So let's hit undo, undo, undo. Nice! Oh, come on, that's so cool. I really hope that you're enjoying the course so far. And if that's the case, please feel free to leave a review. It really helps. Thank you so much. Okay, so the final step for this lesson is going to be to update the interactability of our button if we don't have any more undo to do or to undo. So more undo to undo. Anyway, so for that, we need a reference to the undo button. Okay, so let's add it. Let's open our GPU sprite brush. Boom, boom. I'm going to just speedrun that because you know how to do this. Serialize field, private, button, undo button. Okay, boom, alt, enter. Of course, using unityengine.ui, boom. And I'm just going to add a new method to update the interactability of the button. So private void, update undo button interactability, like so. So undo button.interactable equals undo objects dot count is greater than 0. If we have undo objects, then it should be interactable. If not, it should not. So update blah blah blah. And of course, we also want to update that whenever we add an undo object here, like so. Awesome. I think that it should do the trick. So let's jump back to Unity. Let's add a reference to the undo button. I'm now young again. And let's hit play. All right. Now it's interactable because we haven't dealt with that yet. So let's click it. Okay, nothing happens. Cool. Because undo objects.count equals 0. So what we can do to fix that is actually call that method at start. Or what you can do, because there is no undo at start, you can simply select the undo button and turn it as non-interactable. Yeah, that's actually easier. I know that you guys are lazy, and to be honest, I am too. Let's now try this. Boom. Okay, so it has turned interactable. That's really cool. Let's try and paint stuff. Boom. Okay, really nice. Undo, 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 undo. And it's not interactable anymore. Okay, really cool. Ah, finally. Yay. Now I'm going to have fun. We need to have fun from time to time. Okay, so blue. What goes well with red? I think orange can be nice. Yep, that's decent. Maybe a bit of yellowish. So now you can actually skip the course or go to the end of the course because I'm just going to paint a bit more and have fun. Come on. I've done all of this burden to teach you. I need to have fun from time to time. I'm a human like you. I don't know if I like it, but let's say that I like it. Again, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed the course, and that's going to be it for this lesson. See you in the next one. Welcome back, guys. There is just one small thing that I want to add before leaving. I don't know where I'm going to leave, but anyway. So right now, if we select the paintbrush and the maximum size, actually any size, if we press and don't move the mouse, it's actually painting so much, okay? So it's like the hardness doesn't make any sense here. What I want to do is check if the mouse position has not moved. We are not going to paint. We are also going to save on memory, actually. Let's undo. Yeah, the undo is still working. Awesome. So for that, let's open our GPU sprite brush. And by the way, you can definitely skip this lesson if you want to keep this behavior. I don't like it, so I'm just going to show you how you can avoid it. Let's do something like, I don't know, maybe improvements. Yep, something like that. Private vector2 previous mouse position. Like so, okay. So whenever we click somewhere around here, we are going to store that previous mouse position. So somewhere around here, previous mouse position equals input, input.mouse position. There you go. After that, in our raycast current sprite method, because I think that this is the one that gets called whenever we drag the mouse around. So right here, if our input.mouse position equals our previous mouse position, it means that we haven't moved the mouse. So let's just return. Doesn't make any sense to paint that. What's wrong here? Vector 2, is that a vector 3? It is. So let's cast that to a vector 2. Doesn't make sense to have a vector 3 actually here. Like so. There you go. What you could have done is also turn that into a vector 3 to prevent having errors, but the mouse position is in 2D space though, so I don't know why there is a third axis taken into account. Anyway, so let's try that first and see if it works. Keep also in mind that you can add a threshold. You can calculate the distance between the previous mouse position and the input.mouse position. And by the way, I forgot something, it's not going to work. And check if it's greater than the threshold. If that's the case, you can allow the player to paint. Otherwise, nope. So what we are going to do is right here, just after painting, we can actually assign a new position to the previous mouse position, the current one actually. All right, let's now give it a shot. There you go. Let's select the red color, big brush size, paint. Okay, so it's not doing anything, but if I move the mouse, now it's painting correctly. Awesome. So we are also saving on performance here. If we grab our profiler, okay, so analysis, I think. Yeah, profiler, there you go. Let's move it, not here, but I want it to be a floating window. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so if I paint, you can not notice anything because the performance is already really cool. Because I've already improved the performance, of course. But yeah, we are definitely saving on performance here. Okay, it was a quick lesson, but really important nonetheless. So yeah, see you in the next one.